Because we want to build autonomy. Our goal is to raise autonomous human beings who are capable and competent in whatever way they wish, in whatever ways they are able. And so that starts with knowing how to say no and having an opinion about things, about whether you like them or not. So we say that you can't learn to manage, you can't learn to cope with distress if you've never been distressed. And we have this expectation that kids are going to be happy all the time. But it's not reasonable because we're not happy all the time. And we could be having the same standard week we always do, and it's just a mood. Yeah. And sometimes babies also just have a day.
Ngala acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging in the spirit of reconciliation. We acknowledge the importance of children being raised with connection to culture, community and family.
We've got Darya here. Darya's talking about social and emotional development in the 3, 4 to 12-month period.
Thank you for having me back.
Oh,
so exciting.
Glad you could come back.
Thank you.
So if people are listening to this for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Ngala?
No worries. I am a psychologist, generally registered with APRA, and I at Ngala do a bunch of things, mainly working with kids under the age of 1. So sometime at the hospital and sometimes in programs all over the shop.
Amazing.
Yeah. And in my general practice, I work lots with families and lots with little kids.
So, Darya, you know that we love talking about social and emotional development, and there is a lot happening in that first year. So let's start with 4 to 6 months. What should we be looking for?
I think as we think about those, like we talked about 0 to 3 quite a bit last time about how that's quite the little potato period, and then they really start to develop into their own personalities in that first, that 4 to 6 month block. And I brought with me a visual aid.
Yay!
Because who doesn't love a visual aid?
We love a visual aid.
We use this in one of our programs, which is sort of, if you look at it here, it's got a bunch of milestones that we want to meet and how we can facilitate some of those milestones as we go along. And our parents can find this online if they were going to go looking. And sort of they describe the first 3 to 6 months as like starting to smile, crying when upset, seeking comfort, showing excitement. And for us, we sort of conceptualize as a bigger block as interacting with others. They're really starting to give that to and fro. We start to see that recognition of familiar faces, starting to smile at mum and dad or maybe brothers and sisters. They're starting to also increase that observing of self. So they're starting to notice their toes and feet. They're starting to, it's that like, what is this appendage I have at the end of my hands?
Yeah, they're amazed by their hands.
They're like, where did these come from? Have I had these all this time? And then like they might start some of the hand sucking and the body exploration that we see. And then this, that comes with starting the sounds. There might be some cooing, more babbling. And I know that at the later of the 6 months, they started that recognition of self in the mirror a bit more, being like, who's that baby? And then sort of smiling, like, that baby's smiling at me, and then not connecting that they're the ones smiling at themselves. I'm sure we have an image of our minds of a child we've worked with that you like, that's sort of that next stage of identifying self and identifying other.
Sometimes we see that with the baby, like giving us really intense eye contact. Like we might be holding our baby and all of a sudden they're like really gazing into our eyes. And that's a beautiful moment as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's lots of, I think, when I talk to other mums that, when they're breastfeeding or even bottle feeding their baby, that's the time where now they're not just so into the feeding, they're also like looking at you. They might start to get distracted of somebody entering a room, and they're more aware of their environment and really start to get keen on other people.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls around this age with mothers saying, I can't feed my baby in public anymore because they just keep looking everywhere and being really distracted. And that's a really good sign, actually. Even though it comes with its challenges, it's a great sign that your baby is actually becoming much more socially aware.
Yeah, and we want that for them, right? We want them to feel connected to their environment and the adults in their environment. We want them to feel like they're part of that community. And at this age, the grasp of community is not as strong as, as the adult, but it's this idea that I'm interested in others and I'm interested in what other people are doing. Because eventually we want them to be interested and then want to copy some of it.
Yeah.
We want them to be keen on, grasping and reaching and sitting and crawling and walking. And some of that comes from, my brothers and sisters get there faster than me. I'd like to get there that fast too. And then they start to copy some of those bigger gross motor actions. And co-regulation at this stage it's still very much adult leaned, right? So they might start some self-soothing in terms of like hand sucking, or they might at the end of 6 months be able to like reach and grab the dummy if it's really close to them at nighttime. But I don't know about you guys, but my son never did that. That was
It's usually luck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
bit of
not
luck.
his strong suit.
No,
It wasn't like,
yeah.
gee, I'll make myself feel calmer by getting this, as opposed to like, this is within reach. I'll try
Accidentally
this. Yeah, like
fell
look,
into
I
my
found this
hand.
thing. Yeah. So that's starting the emergence of a few small self-soothing skills. I would in no way, shape, or form be relying on those for soothing. So it's still very co-regulation reliant. And we're thinking about, it's still the saying, sighing, swaying, shushing, all the standards, patting. And if we're distressed in public, it's there, dampening some of the sensory experiences. It's perhaps, we talk about busy cafe or like busy restaurant. Let's go to the classics. Ambitious out for dinner, 5 p.m. with a 4-month-old. Every time I see parents, I'm like, you do, go you.
You go.
That was amazing.
Well done.
So proud of you for getting out there. But let's say baby's lost it, right? It gets to a point where the baby's like, I'm finished here. I don't see the benefit of sitting around all of you. I don't understand the concept of social dinner. It's getting close to my bedtime and, it's now noisy. And it's that there's very challenging moments in that space to be able to soothe a baby. So often, someone will take the baby out into the quiet, off a bit of time to regulate, and then come back in once everyone's calmer, including the adult, and then sort of trying to stay within that space. And I think that's the kind of co-reg we're starting to see more of at that age, as opposed to like, oh no, the regulation means we're going to stay home.
Yeah.
I feel like at that stage, if we're going to imagine a baby crying, I think more often than not we see it's this age, right, out in public, because parents are starting to stretch their ability almost at being able to return to some of the activities they were doing well before they had kids. And also I think 4 to 6 months, for a lot of people, that's the end of maternity leave.
Yeah.
And lots of people return to work at this point. And so it's that like then starting to balance. So part of me always thinks that some of these, we think about, how to think about things being on track. I'm always hesitant in this age group because I'm always thinking about the impacts of their development, but also the impacts of our environment at this particular stage.
Yeah.
Because you can't really have one without the other. And in our society, the way it is, for a lot of people, that's a big transition from being at home full time or, home a big chunk of the time to then having to now balance working and caring for baby. And that's I'm sure we all can agree, a ginormous adjustment.
Yes.
It's a different balancing act.
It's huge.
Yeah.
You're sort of entering out of that newborn sort of very close to home, small
bubble.
circle bubble to, okay, this is my new sort of normal. Yeah.
And then also I find the support drops off. It gets to this point, I find that people are like, oh, you got it now.
Yeah.
And you've got the baby's 4 months old. You're fine. You figured it out. Whereas as we joked about before, that there really isn't, there's a new baby every couple months.
Yeah.
Because they change so much and so quickly.
Yes.
And you blink and then you're like, oh, this is cool. We've nailed, I don't know, the baby's starting to discover their feet and they're starting to, I don't know, seek, comfortably look and smile at other people. Fantastic. And then you transition to the next block.
Yeah.
You can't keep up.
No.
It's like whiplash.
And you're like, I'm good. Oh, wait, I actually don't know what I'm doing anymore.
No clue anymore.
And now, so the 6 to 9 month olds, the leap here is they start to be, let's try that again. They become more aware that they're a separate being to you. And that's when we see the emergence of separation anxiety.
Yes.
They're more cautious around strangers and adults they might not see all the time. So, a baby who was happy to go to Nana, who they see once every 3 weeks at 3 months, 4 months old. And it gets to 6 months old and suddenly they're like, whoa.
Yeah, you're not my people.
Yeah, I don't see you all the time. And you are definitely not mum or dad.
Yeah.
Or the primary caregivers for me. So I don't know. I don't want to spend any time with you right now. I want to stay with my known adults. And in the programs that we've worked in before, lots of times this will be the moment that mum's like, I can't leave him with anybody.
Yeah.
Just
a lot
cry
of
all the
pressure
time.
added to mum or dad.
Yeah. Whoever the primary attachment is in that moment. And there's then there's this reluctance to leave the baby with someone else because there's all these elevated levels of distress. So if I'm going to spin my wheel, the wheel sort of talks about peekaboo, getting upset, separated from the person, response to own name, enjoys a daily routine, unsure of strangers, and more comfort seeking. And holding and this comfort seeking says sort of sucking their thumb or holding a special toy or blanket. So they're starting to move away from comforting with self with seeking an alternate item.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that, but I wonder if even 9 months is a bit young for that. A part of me thinks that when I think about kids and using a comfort item, 9 months old aren't usually like, oh, I'm feeling upset, fetch me my binky, because we don't quite have the language.
Well, we talk about introducing one at around 7 months.
Yeah, 7 to 8 months.
Yeah, but you have to encourage it.
Yeah.
It's not that they're going to seek it out until they're a bit older.
Their main comforter is that primary caregiver.
Yeah.
So they're initially, what I say to parents is you might give them a little binky or whatever that little teddy is or something, and they're going to look at that and go, what's this?
Yeah. This isn't
useful.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Yeah. But often it's in that second year of life from 12 to 24 months that attachment really forms, but it doesn't happen overnight. So from around 7, 8, 9 month period is a really nice time to start to pair yourself as well with that comforter.
Yeah.
So sometimes I say when you're feeding, just having that little thing around, just keeping it close to you. So some
Tuck
of that
it in.
tucking
Yeah,
it in.
yeah.
Some smells like you.
As long as if the parents pay attention to it, they're really interested in our phones because we give a lot of attention to our phone. They want that phone. So if we pay a lot of attention to this comforter, they'll be like, hey, what's so great about that?
I want that thing. Yeah.
But it doesn't work for all babies either. Not all babies will enjoy a comforter.
And I also think sometimes I was like, I bought 2 of the same one. Yeah. It was easy to find. And then my sister-in-law bought this like fancy one from the, and do you know what he fell in love with? Not the one that I had 2 of, that's for sure.
That's right. The one that if you lose it, it's gone.
And you know what? We got lucky this year. He's 3 and she has found one online because we're getting to a point I'm like, well, I can't lose this very precious item. And he goes on holidays with us and boards the plane. And I was like, this is a recipe for loss.
So
we talk about having it on a rotation. So having 3 of them, one in the wash, one in the bag, and one in the bed. So you've kind of got those.
But only offer one type.
Yeah, only one, the exact same, and then swapping them around so the wear and tear becomes the same.
Because then they can discriminate. My son could always discriminate between the old one
and the spare.
And the spare, yeah. But then at the same time, again, when he was a bit older, I'm pretty sure he attached to a flashlight. Yeah. And he took that to bed with him. So you can't.
You see babies walking around with spatulas and things, and I think, you do you know?
Yeah, there was a hammer that I had to move out of bed yesterday. To be like, we can't, this is a tool, not a toy. We have to put this away at bedtime.
They'll choose what they want, won't they?
Yeah. And I guess it's teaching that there are other ways to seek comfort and other things that could offer comfort, right? Because that's what we're trying to teach, right? In that moment when we offer it, we're saying, I am a wonderful comfort and resource available to you, but here are all these other things that we are introducing into your coping repertoire that might also be useful.
We want to create some variability there. And sometimes if our baby's having trouble with that, it can be hard as a parent to we might want to keep our baby really close. We might sort of overestimate their vulnerabilities and not necessarily see that opportunity for them to kind of build their capacity. And that can be tricky.
And for things like big transitions like going to daycare or going to grandma's house or having something to take with them that is home, that is, that they see all the time can create another layer of safety, right? It's like you're going to daycare, hear all these familiar educators that you know and love. And, for us, his name is Possum. Possum is in the bag.
Yeah.
So, if it gets to a level where the educators can't or unable to meet that need because they are not people you see every single day, then, there's a thing with you that you could also use to layer it up.
And I think it's important that we note that this is actually expected behaviour at this age, like that realising object permanence and knowing this is what we want to see babies doing instead of, oh no, my baby's now got separation anxiety. Well, actually that's great because it means that they've had this little, their brain has started to develop different neural pathways and is figuring things out.
Yeah, and this whole idea of knowing that they're separate from you and their own entity also comes with some other things that emerge that parents are like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And that can be in terms of like refusing certain toys or pushing things away and start the emergence of no.
Yes.
It might not be verbal yet. Well, probably not at 6 to 9 months, but it's that pushing things away,
turning the head
away, knocking things away off the table.
Making choices.
Yeah, it's the start.
Yeah, and you want to encourage it.
Yes, because we want to build autonomy. Our goal is to raise autonomous human beings who are capable and competent in whatever way they wish and whatever ways they are able. And so that starts with knowing how to say no and having an opinion about things, about whether you like them or not.
Yes, boundaries.
Boundaries, which I'm sure everyone can be better at.
Yes.
And I think that's, and this point is also the emergence of communication. So, certain signs might emerge if you're doing some sign language at home or some signing, some basic signs. There's they might have some intentional, I was going to say words might not necessarily be it, but there'll be sounds that are associated with certain things. If my friend's baby used to do that, and that usually came out exactly the same time. She'd be like, milk? Do you want some milk? And there'd just be that like constant sound.
Or num, num, num. Yeah. Kind of those vowel sounds.
Yeah, they started to be more paired with an activity or an item, which again, great. Also can be really tricky for some parents because they're worried about, oh no, now there is refusal or demanding of certain things, sort of that adamant requesting of certain items or certain activities. And again, it's just the developmental pathway.
It's what we want.
It's the blocks, right?
Yeah.
We want those blocks there because eventually when the language emerges, we want them to be able to negate and request. And we can't have that without this.
And then what does co-regulation look like in this age range of sort of 6 to 9 months? Is it similar?
I think it is really similar at this point. Again, we're starting to see another layer of perhaps moving towards more self-reg and more capacity to seek things out that might bring them comfort. However, I think still mum and dad, primary caregiver, are the most reliable, consistent and effective self-reg.
Yeah. So we're almost just scaffolding maybe some opportunities for something else like that comforter that we talked about, but we're still having, as parents, to actually do quite a lot.
And realistically, even well past 12 months, but let's go in that first year as we were talking about that today, parents still play an ultimately key role. The primary caregiver plays a key role in the regulation of children. As I sometimes say to parents, it's real rich to expect a 12-month-old to be able to handle disappointment when we see adults who cannot handle disappointment. And they've been around 12 months. It's not a reasonable expectation. Even a 3-year-old, I'm like, gee, it's tricky to expect them to be totally okay with missing out on that thing they really wanted because the weather's bad when adults struggle with that. So up to 12 months, I feel like it's well out of reach to expect them to be able to handle any big change or dysregulation period on their own. Just can't. That's not saying, though, that, as we talked about last time, if you're really distressed, it's nighttime, it's late, that you can't put baby down, give them a minute, walk away and keep everyone safe. But if we're talking about daytime, happy playtime, regulation, disappointment, then the adult still needs to be facilitating and soothing.
Yeah.
I think it's okay as well that babies feel these feelings.
Yeah.
They're normal feelings,
Baby as person.
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't want to avoid having negative feelings. So we say that you can't learn to manage, you can't learn to cope with distress if you've never been distressed.
Exactly.
If you've never had a moment of discomfort, you're never going to get better at, managing it in the moment. And they are going to have periods of distress where you're not going to be there eventually. Eventually there'll be a time at school when they fall down off the monkey bars and it's going to take a few minutes to find the grown-up. And they're going to have a robust repertoire of how to handle that moment without you there. And it kind of starts here and starts with you being consistent and responsive and with time teaching them, giving them the room to explore their autonomy and a way to cope with stress and distress.
It can be hard though because if as a parent you're not comfortable with that emotion, it's very hard to be with your child while they're feeling it. So
Definitely.
be kind to yourselves, parents out there.
And we definitely lean towards, and of course they're their baby. We want to soothe their distress as quickly as possible. It's not that we're hoping that they will learn it faster if we let them have more of it.
Yeah.
Not at any stage,
it's all
but definitely at
practice.
this
It's
stage.
just practicing. Yeah.
And then the most, the research literature sort of points that the best predictor of a resilient child is a secure and responsive attachment figure. It's not the amount of stress you've experienced. It's not the amount of time you managed to calm yourself as a baby. It's about how responsive and compassionate and present your primary caregiver was.
Yeah.
So in the end, leaning in and soothing and tending.
Being with.
Yeah, and I really hear taking that developmental as well as an infant mental health lens when we're looking at our baby, thinking of them as their own person, thinking about what it's bringing up for us and thinking about what developmentally are their capacities and vulnerabilities. And so it's a lot to actually mentalise
so
that.
much going on in that moment, just when your
thinking about
baby's
thinking.
upset. Yeah.
But maybe it's not in that moment. Maybe it's after those moments when you reflect, you go, actually, that was really hard for me, when I couldn't come or soothe my baby, or when I felt like I needed them to do more, and actually they kind of can't do more. So it's maybe thinking about it afterwards.
Definitely.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think being kind to yourself as well and knowing good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
You don't have to get it right every time. It's just
start
about
the
being
repair.
aware. Yeah.
The repair is huge. Yeah.
The repair, even repair with baby, we often talk about how, we're not going to get it right all the time. It's also impossible with babies. They change so quickly. You couldn't possibly get it right because you
The next day they're different.
Yep. And they were finding the car today, and tomorrow the car's the worst thing that's ever happened.
And they're their own person, with their own individual needs and requirements. So we need to follow their lead.
And bad days, everyone has them. They do. And we have this expectation that kids are going to be happy all the time. But it's not reasonable because we're not happy all the time. And we could be having the same standard week we always do, and it's just a mood.
Yeah.
And sometimes babies also just have a day.
Yep. And they're allowed.
They're allowed. And it's not you. And you haven't done anything wrong. And there's nothing that's amiss. I guess if there's more bad days than good, then it's a child health nurse visit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something more going on for them physically. Maybe there is a difference in temperament. Maybe there's a need being unmet that maybe we're not aware of.
And that actually brings in nicely, talking about that 9 to 12 month period and temperament. So what is temperament?
So temperaments are sort of innately wired. I want to say the word setting. Sort of it's how we're at a baseline, right? So if we think about, people have always argued the nature versus nurture, that whether your biology or your environment has the most shapely impact on how you develop. And to be honest, it's been many, 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 many tens of decades, and they still can't decide on what's more important. So we sort of lean into both. And temperament sort of says that's a part of you that comes already pre-wired, that exists regardless of what intervention or parenting occurs. There's a part of you that will stay sort of consistent. And when I think about temperament, I sort of think about the difference between a sensitive temperament and robust. Often they use the word resilient, but I don't really like that because I think there's resilience interwoven with both. There's a sense of resilience in both of them. And I hate using that because then it implies that the sensitive child isn't resilient, and that's not really right. So we'll go robust and sensitive, right? So, and if someone, parents often hear about orchids and daisies, right? Both can thrive. Daisies can thrive anywhere. Cracks in the pavement, they require very little tending, if you will. They will pop up regardless, just a little bit of rain. Whereas orchids require a little more loving care. They're more sensitive to temperature and light. I find orchids very tricky as a plant.
They're very beautiful and they have a lot to offer the world.
Yes, and they will resprout again. You don't need to replant them. They, over time, require less care because they sort of, if you do a few small things, they will continue to flourish. But they require a different kind of tending. Right? And so I think the analogy often comes that, some kids are daisies where they require a sprinkling here and there, but don't require a whole heap of scaffolding or sensitive handling. And some kids are orchids where they're beautiful, they flourish, they have a lot to offer the world, perhaps require a different kind of tending. And if we offer orchid kids daisy tending, they might find environments really tricky. And if we give daisy kids orchid tending, they might be like, whoa, this is a lot of stuff.
Let me be me.
Yeah, like there's stuff I need to do. Why are you still speaking? I don't need this much scaffolding and support. And I think regardless of whether you go down and define it that way, it's this idea that some children require a little bit more. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're not innate. That's not innately a problem. It's thinking about how that impacts on their day-to-day functioning and what needs you're able to meet. And then over time, if you find that, friends who've said in the past that, it's definitely, having an orchid baby requires a bit more sensitive to big, busy places, requires quite a lot of recharge time. It's harder to go out and, to busy events, too many in a row, so Christmas times can be really tricky. That over time, they're like, oh, maybe there's something wrong. And lovely child health nurses have been like, oh, actually, no, it's just temperament. It's a baby who likes the quiet.
Yeah.
And we have adults who like the quiet, and that's okay. If we're all the same, it'd be mighty boring.
So boring.
So
and it
boring.
goes back to that good versus bad, good baby versus bad baby. Well, like you said, it's just a convenient baby or an inconvenient baby sometimes, and that's the actual reality behind it. People are who they are.
And with Orchid and Daisy, sort of that robust versus sensitive children, the sensitive child's not necessarily the convenient or inconvenient baby, because in some situations the robust child might be the inconvenient one.
Absolutely.
They're the ones hightailing it through the supermarket at 300 kilometers an hour, and you're out running out of Aldi like a madwoman.
It also depends on the parent's temperament too.
I was going to bring that up.
Yes.
It's that tightness of fit. What if you're a Daisy parent and you've got an Orchid
baby.
child, and you anticipated you would have Daisy children who were kind of like you, easygoing, and suddenly you've got this child that needs a little bit more. That can sometimes cause a little bit of tension.
You've got the same thing that goes back to, babies kind of seeing parents as an extension of themselves. Well, sometimes parents do that to their babies, and they think that the feeling that they're feeling is what their baby's feeling. But actually, that's not always the case. It can be true, but it's not always the case. So it's interesting. It can be so tricky.
And it's so true, because sometimes I feel like, because they don't have the language to tell us, like, oh, whoa, actually, I love a loud spot.
Yeah.
This is totally good for me.
Play the music.
Yeah, like, louder, please. I love this. They don't have the language to communicate that, so parents like, oh no, well, I don't like it.
Yeah,
so then
baby's not going to like it.
yeah, it's busy here and I don't like busy, so baby doesn't like busy. But then we might reduce the exposure too.
Yes.
And how would we know if the environment
The chicken or the egg.
chicken or the egg? And so I think the temperament of the parent and the temperament of the child both have a role to play. And then also within a household, you might have multitudes of temperaments.
Yeah.
So let's say you are a Daisy parent, you already have 2 Daisy kids and a Daisy husband, and then you have an Orchid baby.
Third baby, curly one.
The curly one. You got too confident with your 2 Daisies. You got an Orchid.
Made you think you could have a third.
Got too confident. And then you were having to adjust not only the way your house may operate on a day-to-day, but also the experience you've had as a parent prior. And that can be really tricky too. A different kind of tricky too. This is my first baby. I'm not quite sure how this falls and how this works. It's sort of a rewiring of the needs of this particular baby.
It comes with a lot of confusion because you're like, I've done this before. I've done this twice before.
And I think society feeds that confusion, being like, but you've done this before.
You're not a first-time mum.
You've had
got
babies.
this.
Yeah.
But every baby is different. That's what I always say to parents who call us.
And I imagine on the parenting line, you would get a few parents who being like, I thought I was an old hand. And I can't access my usual supports because they think I'm an old hand and they think I've got this. But this baby is completely different to the babies I've had.
Yeah. And it's the idea of the baby that you think that you're going to have versus the baby that you actually may have.
Yeah. And again, changes so often. You're like, you have this preconceived idea of what this baby is up to, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. And in 9 months, they, might be crawling or, the emergence of walking for some early walkers, and be like, oh, wait.
Yeah, my whole life's just changed in 2 days.
This is not the same as as the baby I thought I had 2 months ago. So when I think about temperament, what I would really want parents to remember is that, yes, we want you to look out for all these milestone-y bits going forward, and think about if there's any big social emotional milestones that maybe baby's not quite there yet, and that's a chat for the child health nurse. But if some things might just be personality. And to have a think about whether it's your expectation versus the way the baby is, versus is there something innately in your gut that tells you that maybe something's not quite where it should be. And a lot of the time, all of that will come from most parents. A chat with the child health nurse, some soothing, a completion of the ASQ, which is the questionnaire the child health nurse does. You can discuss your concerns. And, the conversations I had with child health nurses, in 6 months' time, all those things are different. All the concerns are different.
Yeah.
And they will change forevermore. But sort of just keeping that in the back of your mind.
And the child health nurse may ask to check in again. Say, let's check in 6 months' time, or let's check in a little bit more frequently if this is something that you have a few concerns over. And then they can also support you, to do referrals if you do need some specialty services, say you do need some extra help or another set of eyes on this child. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think the child health nurse is also really great at tongue twister. They're really great at spotting an anxious parent too. If you're not unsure and you're focusing on something that you think could be a problem, and you could be completely in your gut and completely on the money, but sometimes you're again projecting some of those worries that because it's different to what you expected or it's different to the last baby. And child health nurses are really great at being like, okay, that feels like a real worry to you. Let's see each other again.
Yeah.
Let's come back to it. And some of that reassurance, I think some parents find really guiding.
Some reassurance and validation does go a long way. But yeah, I always tell parents, trust your gut and reach out.
Definitely. And because I think we went through a period in this as a society of undermining parents' knowledge and referring to the specialist as being the all knowledgeable, but you spend the most time with your baby.
Yeah. Parents are the experts.
You know them best, yeah. And so trusting your gut and then also leaning on somebody that has other knowledge aside from this one baby.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can get really stuck in our bubble and then look around and be like, oh, actually, everyone's having a similar challenge in this stage. So when we're thinking about our 9-12 months, I like to think about the first emergence of personality. They can finally really advocate for themselves in some ways. And we're starting to see the emotional change. So I think in 4 to 6 months, we talked a little about as well the emergence of different facial expressions. They start to have more than, happy, sad. This fear starts to come in, and they might disgust starts to come in as you introduce solids, and it's all that the starts of differentiating between different feelings. Obviously, can't label them yet, but facial expression-wise, that has begun. At 9 to 12 months, we have that, and then perhaps words labeled on top of that. Ew, apple. Ugh. The three start to come together as a facial expression. There might be a word, and there might be like the emotional label. And the growing sense of self, of what I like, of what I want to do, and it's sometimes not what you want to do, the speed at which I'd like to go, which can go
preferences,
not the red shoes, the blue ones. We might have many kids walk by the first year. There might be some more sort of like, well, you physically now can't just carry me and put me places. Now there has to be an emergence of collaboration. And we sort of start to see it at that 12-month, lifting their foot to put a shoe on, lifting their leg up so you can slide the pants on their legs. So it's that emerging collaborative relationship
or
starts.
Not doing that.
Or not, or I just don't want to, The capacity is there, but not the will. Sometimes we joke that at 9 months old, 6 to 9 months, it's like all the gear, but no idea. They have all the ability to do all the things, but not quite sure how to utilize it in the most effective and or socially collaborative way. And my friends' kids who walked in 9 months, I'm like, wow, it's all the gear and no idea on legs.
Yeah.
That's just
a little bit scary.
Yeah, it's a whole level. Yes. It's like the ones, because they have no fear. It's like, that's a step. Meh, what does that mean? To know, let's just go and see and find out.
And then you've got the babies who are the opposite, who will see a little step this high and they turn around and climb down it. They're just also different.
Or get stuck.
Yeah, that's right. They don't know what to do.
Yeah. You're like, I can't possibly step down this ginormous drop.
Yeah.
And at that period, that 9 to 12 months, we're seeing lots of interacting with others. They're starting to seek their familiar people, but they're also starting to show an interest in other people and other things. They might not be willing to, go and sort of go towards them, but there's more like looking at other kids playing. There might be more interest in being alongside other kids while they play and snatch things out of siblings' hands or cousins' hands, or and that emergence of that parallel interest. Not yet collaborative or really knowing how to join in or really having the driver to join in yet. It's a bit early, but definitely an interest in other and what they're doing. And, I find that a third orchid or daisy baby, it would be like, all right, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And can I do that? Wanting to be with the other people in the house. Also around this time, it's that you can't possibly leave me in this room by myself. So we have the separation anxiety 6 to 9, and at 9 to 12, it's like, oh no, I may not be here. Even if I can see you, this is way too far away from you. And I want to be here at all times. This is the time where I tell parents, toddler tower. That is the 12 months birthday present is a toddler tower, because then they can be with you and not in the way of anything you are trying to do. Like, here, stir this on the other side of the bench so I can finish chopping something without your hands there.
Yeah, or the bottom drawer is another good one. You set up a drawer that's got baby safe things, and they think they're very clever because they found some sort of loophole to all your other baby proofing that they open and they can sort of pull out and be there in the kitchen, which is often where that primary caregiver is spending some time to try to feed themselves and that child multiple times a day.
And then washing the dishes of the child multiple times a day. And I think also it's one of the few tasks where you really can't bring baby with. You know, we talk about like if you're hanging the washing, you can bring baby with. They can play with pegs and pull out cold washing and, you know, pass pegs and throw things. That's all fine. But the kitchen's one of the few places I think why that's where we come back to, is because it's one of the few places you can't be like, here, help me on the stove. You know what I mean? There's not like
Here's a knife. Let's chop some onions.
Here, I could use some help. Stir this mince up on the pot. You know what I mean?
Often there's also an urgency. So if something is bubbling over, suddenly you can be with your baby and then you urgently have to kind of separate. And that shock of that separation that's when the baby starts screaming and the pot is overflowing or burning. It seems to all happen at the same time.
And it's usually like 5 p.m.
Yes, when everyone's very tired.
And it's the end of the day. And everyone's regulation capacity is nice and low across the board. Agreed. I read a really interesting thing recently about introducing food and introducing new foods. And it sort of clicked for me as a parent, was that she said, why are we introducing new and novel foods and challenging new things at dinner time? And had this moment been like, why on earth do we do that? That's the worst time to introduce new food.
Yeah.
Coping's at its lowest. Everyone's the least patient. And we as a society be like, dinner, that's when we... I was like, even I'm guilty of trying to introduce new food.
I think it's because you think of it as the main meal.
Yeah. But it's the least regulated, like, it's the meal with the least regulation on board.
Yeah.
So suddenly I was like, we're doing lunchtime new foods now. Makes so much sense. Why would you take a pee at 5:30 p.m. on a Tuesday? I wouldn't.
No one would.
And at the 9 to 12 months, we have that curiosity exploration. The natural scientist starts to emerge. What happens when I do this?
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
It's hard to manage as a parent sometimes.
That's the baby proofing. I think that's that era as well, isn't it? That you suddenly had a house and now you have to dramatically change where you position things.
Everything goes up a level.
Yeah. And you're suddenly aware of where you usually keep things and how not safe any of that is.
All the kitchen stuff, the cleaning products under the kitchen cupboard, absolutely not.
Under the sink. And we all do it, don't we? We get there and we're like, now someone lives in there to move things out. We also think, there's a great show called The First 1,000 Days, and it's and it follows, I think it's like 100 kids in their different sections of development. And one of the ones I think about when I envision that natural scientist, it's this narrator talking about how many times kids will drop things off the high chair. And it's that. And then you like pick it up, put it back in the high chair, and then they're like, again. Will the same thing happen or different again and again and again?
And there's so many variables even, like if I'm dropping a pea, that's a different experience to if I'm doing a splat of some puree or if I'm dropping something that's harder.
A rattle.
Something that makes a sound. So as well as then the interaction of the people around someone, even if you're trying not to interact, that splat.
You're like, I have to clean that now.
Maybe there's a dog down here too who's waiting for that, it's all,
And the rattle of like, that's made a noise. If I do it again, we'll make the same noise. And rattles don't because they land different, right? And so then it's that repeated. And that is such a natural learning process. It's actually quite an important bit of the learning process. It's that cause and effect. I do something and then something happens. That something happens is the dog gets some extra dinner. Or sometimes it's then my adult smiles at me or rolls their eyes or huffs and picks up the thing off the floor again. Or I get to remove the thing I didn't actually want off the table, and it's super effective. And so it's quite a learning process, and it leans towards some really big cognitive skills later down the track. And we need that to go to the next bit, because cause and effect is the same behaviorally. If I bite my mum, that's what effect would that have? Usually that means I have to move out of that space, or mum's going to put me down, or that's the start of that understanding that we do things and then other things come as a result of that. And that kind of emerges at that 9 to 12 months.
So in this period, Darya, there might be a few social and emotional skills that really emerge. Can you talk to a few of those?
Yeah. So one of the other things I was thinking about was the idea of joint attention, is that I point and we both look. or child points, and we both look. And it's the idea that they both were starting to respond to, so they're starting to look to you for clues of what you're looking at and why that's interesting, and then also starting to draw your attention to things they're looking at. And at this point, it's probably not a direct point, but it's that intense looking, and then we join them, like we talked about, that are serve and returns. But it would be more explicit as, here's that block, share with me in this moment. And that's a big growth point in terms of collaborative development. So then now I care what your input is, I want your feedback on this thing, and then on the flip side is I'm interested in what you're interested in and I want to share that with you. And the other thing for parents, and I guess everyone to keep in mind, is it's starting to emerge as the routine, where we were really baby-led in the first 3 months. We're really taking baby's cues and going with their needs in the moment. By 9 to 12, we're starting to think more of a family routine too. You know, we do a bath book in bed before bedtime. We go have a nap around the same time. We go to bed around the same time. And at this stage, kids seek that predictability. They do sort of revel in this consistent daily rhythm. Yeah. And it doesn't need to be exactly the same, like 6 p.m., oh no, all's doomed. But it's that rhythm of the day that cues them to waking and resting and
create safety.
Yeah.
And I often tell parents that children or young babies, they understand at this age, they're starting to understand the world through those environmental cues. So if we can have some consistency with that, that's actually helping them to feel more safe, secure, predictable.
They understand.
Yeah, of what's coming next. They can't necessarily understand when we're saying all those words, but they're getting it through the cues from the environment.
Definitely. And at 12 months, might see the words starting to emerge too. And it's that, leaning into language, and in that routine, we're using those words repeatedly, and they then can also use that as a prediction cue.
Yeah, so it's all building on top of each other.
Yeah.
Layers and layers on layers.
We've talked about some lovely things today. Thank you so much, Darya, for coming in again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Parenting with Ngala. The topics covered in our podcast are general in nature, and the information might not suit everyone. If you're in Western Australia and would like to chat about a specific challenge, you can talk directly to the Ngala parenting line by calling 9368 9368. For all other links and resources, check out the Ngala website and the show notes below. Thank you again, and see you next time.